Welcome to the special edition of Global Signs. I'm Bruce Han. I'm very excited to introduce today's guest, Mr. Jim Rogers, who's joining us from Singapore. Everyone knows Jim Rogers in the Korean financial community. He is a celebrated author, financial commentator, and international investor. Jim, happy Lunar New Year. Thank you so much for joining us on Global Signs.
Hanuk, I am delighted to be here. Korea is my favorite country now, so I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you very much. Since your last interview on our station, the biggest change has been the Fed's stance on monetary policy. The Fed plans to terminate tapering and has hinted about quantitative tightening. Do you think that the upcoming change in the Fed's stance on monetary policy will be appropriate in terms of speed and scale?
Hanuk, I have no confidence in the American Central Bank or any central bank for that matter. So whatever they do, I'm sure they're going to do wrong. They're late to the party again. They kept saying don't worry about inflation. Now all of a sudden they realize, oh, there's inflation. It's the worst inflation in 40 years. Oh, where did this come from? So they're going to try. But whatever they do, they're going to get it wrong. Don't worry.
Along with changes in the Fed's stance on monetary policy, U.S. Treasury yields have risen a lot since the beginning of the year. Do you interpret that as the end of the bond market bubble?
It's coming to an end. Yeah, certainly not the end yet, because somewhere along the line, the central bank all central banks are going to panic, and they're going to cut back and say, "Oh, we made a mistake," and then bonds will rally again. But we are coming to the end of the bond market bubble all over the world. Yes, it's not over yet, but in 5 years, people will say, "How could bonds have been so expensive in 2022?" Hanuk, the bond market bubble has ended, but it doesn't end in one day. These things can go on a long time. The last time we had a bull market in interest rates in America, it lasted 30 years. So, these things don't end in a week or a day. You're going to have rising interest rates in the United States for a long time. Not every day, not every month, but interest rates in 5 years, 10 years will be much higher.
Jim, during times of austerity, there's an investment proverb that says you should avoid growth stocks and invest in value stocks. Is this good advice for individual investors now? What is your view?
You should only invest in what you know a lot about, Hanuk. Don't listen to me. Maybe you can listen to Hanuk. Maybe you can listen to Global Signs. But if you want to be a successful investor, don't listen to other people, including the internet. Stay with what you know. If I told you could only invest in 20 things during your lifetime, you'd be very careful and you'd be successful. Now, some people will say, "Oh, that's boring." Be boring if you want to be successful. Don't listen to other people. Stay with what you know. Well, at the moment, I'm not investing in either. If you want to invest, what I'm investing in, I would rather invest in commodities right now, real assets. If we have inflation, some things are going to go up in price. I want to own the things that go up in price. And that's not going to be growth or value unless you find a few isolated companies. It's going to be commodities. I mean, that's what's going to go up in price. I cannot think of any. If you have any, you can whisper to me later. Okay? I do not know of any value stocks that I'm rushing out to buy right now. Certainly not in the United States. The U.S. is making all-time highs. I don't particularly like investing in markets making all-time highs. At the moment, I'd rather invest in Russia or China or places that are more depressed. My view is that you should only invest in what you yourself know a lot about. During bear markets, Hanu, nearly everything goes down. Go back to any bear market anywhere in the world, and you'll see that nearly everything goes down and goes down a lot. So nothing's going to save you. If you want to save yourself, invest in only what you yourself know a lot about. If you listen to hot tips from the internet or something, and things start going wrong, you don't know what to do because you don't know why you bought it in the first place. You just know that some guy or some woman on the internet told you to buy it. That's why you should only stay with what you know, because then when problems arise, you know what to do. If you listen to me, you think I'm going to call you up and say, oh, Hanuk, guess what? There's a problem. This is what you should do. I'm not going to call you. I'm not going to call anybody. So you better stay with what you know if you want to survive and be successful. I can tell you what I'm investing in, but who cares? You should only invest in what you know about.
Jim, but at GMO, they think that it's time for value stocks again.
Hooray, let them buy value stocks. If you want to know what I'm doing, I'd rather buy, during times of inflation, some things go up in price. I want to own the things that go up in price. Commodities. If you look around the world, Hanu, bonds are a bubble. Property, look at property in Seoul, in New Zealand, in many places. That's a bubble. So I don't want to invest in property. Stocks are forming bubbles in many countries around. The only thing that's cheap are commodities. I mean, the price of silver is down 60% from its all-time high. Sugar's down 60%. Those are not bubble numbers. I want to invest in cheap things, especially when we're going to have a long period of inflation, because that is what will go up in price.
Now, let's talk about China. China's economic growth rate exceeded expectations in 2021, but some analysts are raising concerns over a possible economic slowdown. What is your view on China's economy?
Well, if the world China's the largest trading nation in the world. If the world slows down, China's going to slow down. When your customers have problems, you have problems, whoever you are. And of course, China's going to be affected by what's happening in the rest of the world. Everybody is. Korea is. That's the way the world works. So of course, some companies in China are going to suffer badly. Well, the Chinese have done a good job. Everybody's done a good job because there was gigantic amounts of money printing all over the world, borrowing and spending. But now, apparently, we're going to start having slowdowns. And when you have slowdowns, and if you're the largest trading nation in the world, you're going to have problems. Korea is going to have problems. Everybody's going to have problems because when you have economic slowdown worldwide, trade will slow down. And even if you do the right thing and your customers have problems, Hanuk, you have problems too. So Korea, not that Korea has done much wrong, but your customers will have problems. China's customers will have problems. So the whole world's going to have an economic slowdown later this year and into 23, 24. You should be worried. Hanuk, you should watch global signs because we're going to have problems and you need to be prepared.
If we were to pick one of the worst investments last year, it would have to be the big Chinese tech companies listed in the US. Should investors consider investing in big Chinese tech companies this year?
Of course. One of the most obvious investment guidelines is to buy low and sell high. Those stocks are down. Now, you're Asian, and in Asia, well, in China, the word is weiji, which means disaster and opportunity, the same thing. You have the same word in Korean, the same character. The Japanese have it too, and in Japan it's called kiki, exactly the same character everywhere. So you have learned since you were a child, buy low, buy disaster. So that is a place to look. I am not buying those stocks, but people should be looking because they're certainly cheaper than other things.
You warned that the renminbi could depreciate against the greenback. Do you foresee a possible end of the dollar's hegemony and the beginning of the renminbi's challenge for currency hegemony?
I own U.S. dollars. The U.S. is the largest debtor nation in world history, so you should say, why do you own dollars? I own them because during turmoil, during problems, people look for a safe haven. Many people think the U.S. dollar is a safe haven. It's not, but for historic reasons, people think it is. The U.S. dollar will get overpriced when the turmoil gets worse, at which time I hope I'm smart enough to sell my U.S. dollars. I don't know where I will put my U.S. dollars in, but we're coming. No currency has lasted more than 100, 150 years on top. The U.S. dollar is coming to an end. I don't like saying it. I'm an American, but I have to face facts.
Now, Jim, the economic problem that ran through the end of last year and the beginning of this year is inflation. Around when will inflation run its course?
Hanuk is not going to, the Federal Reserve in the United States says it's transitory, don't worry. They are hopelessly wrong yet again. We're going to have inflation longer than any of us care about. And I don't know how long it's going to last. In the 70s, it lasted nearly 10 years. It's going to last a long time this time because we have never had so much money printing in the history of the world. This has never happened in world history. It's got to last a long time. And unfortunately, we're all going to have to pay a price.
Now, during the initial onset of the pandemic, oil prices turned negative for the first time in history. Analysts are now expecting oil to exceed $100 this year. What is your view on oil?
Well, I'm long oil, and I expect oil prices to go higher. The known reserves of oil continue to decline. They've been declining a long time. Fracking came along and delayed that. The fracking bubble has popped now. No, oil prices are going to go much higher because the known reserves, Hanu, continue to decline.
Now, Jim, I'd like to now ask you about silver. During last year's interview, you were quite positive about investing in silver. What do you think about investing in silver at this point?
Well, what I said was I will be buying more silver somewhere along the line, and I would say the same thing. I haven't bought any silver since then. I'm still waiting. I'm usually not very good at market timing, but somewhere along the line, I hope I'm smart enough to buy more silver and gold. Silver's down much more than gold on a historic basis, and so somewhere along the line, I'm going to buy more silver.
For the last part of our talk, we want to get your views on the Korean market, which our viewers are most curious about. Among developed nations, South Korea has consecutively raised interest rates 3 times at a relatively fast pace. This has brought its benchmark rate to 1.25%, returning to its pre-COVID level for the first time in 22 months. What is your evaluation on the Bank of Korea's policy direction?
Well, I am delighted that the Korean Central Bank understands inflation and is trying to do something about it. I wish they would teach the people in Washington, D.C. I'd rather have your guys running the central bank in Washington than my guys. I'm not saying your guys will get it right, but so far they've been doing a much better job than the people in Washington, D.C.
It's well known that you are quite interested in seeing economic cooperation between the two Koreas, perhaps even more so than most Koreans. Even in the current tense military state, especially since the beginning of the year, do you have a positive view on the feasibility and prospects for economic cooperation?
Hanbando, the Korean Peninsula. You know, you have been a mess for over 100 years. First, you had to deal with the Japanese and the war, and then another war. It's amazing to me. If somebody flew here from Mars, they would say, what is going on here? You're all the same people, same language, same chopsticks, same everything. What's wrong with you? I would hope that somewhere along the line, somebody is going to open that 38th parallel And Hanban-do can be the exciting country that it could be and should be once again. Of all the countries in the world right now, I am most excited about Korea because I know when the 38th parallel opens, it's going to be very, very exciting. So your next question is going to be, when's it going to open? Well, I don't know. Watch Global Signs. They know more than I do about the world and about Korea. I don't know why it doesn't happen now. No, Russia wants it. China wants it. North Korea wants it. Japan is against it. Japan knows they cannot compete with an open Korea, so they're trying to stop it. They cannot stop it, but they're trying. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. It's the American Army. The American Army does not want to leave Korea. It's the only place that America can have troops on the Chinese border and the Russian border.
Now, previously, when you discussed economic cooperation, you made many positive comments about the tourism sector. Besides tourism, are there any other interesting sectors?
Oh, Hanuk, Korea is going to be fabulous. Yes, tourism I've explained before, but things like transportation. I mean, Korea can be a great transportation hub again. There used to be railroads going up at the east and west coast. They're rebuilding those railroads. Why can't you put things on the train in Busan and unload them in Berlin or Paris or London? I mean, this is insane. Shipping could have a huge revival. Agriculture. I've been to North Korea twice. You know, in North Korea, Hanuk, they're still clipping grass with scissors. You know, it's astonishing how behind they are. You know, as recently as 1970, North Korea was richer than South Korea. Well, Hanuk, the Kims and communism can ruin anything, and they ruined North Korea. But so there are huge opportunities in everything. They don't have fertilizer, they don't have seeds, they don't have tractors. There are huge opportunities in agriculture. But Hanuk, just look out the window. They don't have anything. Everything you have, they would like to live like you do. And so there are huge opportunities in North Korea for just about anything. The Korean Peninsula has never been on the world tourism map for many reasons. You know the reasons if you know Korean history. But now, once the 38th parallel is open, many people, certainly the adventurous ones, are going to say, let's go to Korea. Let's see what it is. Let's see what it was. Few people have ever been. And when they get to Korea, they're going to find out beautiful scenery, man-made places, food. I like Korean food now. I love fried silkworms. Have you ever had fried silkworms, Hanuk? I love fried. They're getting hard to find now, but they're going to find Korean food is very good. No, they're going to find the culture is interesting and exciting. So Korea's going to have, the Korean Peninsula is going to have a tourism boom, which it has never had in the history of Korea. And it's going to be very, very, very exciting.
Jim, what is your view on demographics?
Well, as you probably know, Korea has a terrible birth rate. South Korea has a terrible birth rate. You're not reproducing yourself for many reasons. You're marrying foreigners. You're doing everything you can to do something about the demographics, and yet the birth rate keeps going down. And once the 38th parallel opens, you don't have to worry about foreign girls anymore. Foreign women, there are plenty of women in North Korea. And in fact, the saying is that North Korean women are great. I don't know. I don't know about that, but I do know that you won't have to worry about marrying foreigners anymore. You can marry Koreans. There'll be plenty of Koreans. The birth rate will go up whenever there's a new frontier and new prosperity and new confidence. Birth rates go up. One reason the birth rate is so low in South Korea is because everybody's worried. Everybody alive in South Korea, everywhere in Korea, not just South Korea, has worried their whole lives about getting killed. Hanuk, you don't have to worry anymore. You're not going to get, not by a war anyway, you're not going to get killed. So once there's prosperity and confidence, the birth rate will go up. You'll have more children. It'll be a much, much more exciting country in every way, society, economically, every way. No, you know, South Korean teenagers, I read a study recently, Hanuk, which depressed me. The number one goal of South Korean teenagers is to work for the government. What? To work for the government when you're 17 years old? No, no, no. Most teenagers around the world want to be football players or K-pop. They want to do something exciting. Please, once you open the 38th parallel, you'll have a new frontier, you'll have a new excitement, you'll have a higher birth rate, everything. And many Koreans will come back to the Korean Peninsula. No, it'll be a very exciting place again.
Jim, how will the current Ukrainian situation impact the financial markets in your view?
I knew if there's war, you better run for the hills. War has never been good for financial markets, bonds, stocks, anything. So, except commodities, it's great for commodities if there's war. But if there's war, please sell your stocks and your bonds because things are going to be bad everywhere.
Jim, during your talk today, we were able to gain deep and invaluable insights into various economic issues which both Korea and other economies are facing, including interest rate hikes, China's potential economic crisis, as well as views on inflation. Is there anything else you want to say to our investors?
Well, Hanuk, I know that many Koreans in the past 70 years, 100 years, have immigrated. They've gone to Los Angeles, they've gone to Europe, they've gone various places. You should encourage them to come back now because Korea is going to be an extremely exciting place again. Yes, there are problems. Yes, young people in Korea have a lethargy that doesn't exist among young people in many other countries. I hope that somebody in Seoul will get their act together and open the 38th parallel, and let's have a fabulous party. I will tell you what, Hanuk, I'll get the Rolling Stones, you get Blackpink, let Mr. Kim bring somebody if he wants to. We'll have a big, big party on the 38th parallel, and then we'll leave the border open. Don't worry about unifications. The Koreans have been there for thousands of years. You'll take care of the situation. You don't need me or the Americans or anybody else to tell you what to do.
Mr. Jim Rogers, renowned author, erudite financial commentator, and legendary investor, thank you so much for being with us today. I wish you continuing success and good health in the upcoming Year of the Tiger. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hanuk. I hope to see you in Korea.
Thank you very much. That does it for today's special edition with Jim Rogers. Thank you so much for being with us. Until we meet again next week, please be safe and healthy.
새해 복 많이 받으세요.